Hello everyone! This is Nammernan, and today we'll be doing a Monotype MPL 6 predictions for Week 7. So, as you all know, this is a pretty must-win week, and it's very dire for certain teams to win. I believe that we have a permutations out for certain teams and how they're supposed to make it. So, yeah, the only team that can't make it right now is the Dark Rise. Very unfortunate for them, and I really wanted them to actually do well in this tournament, but unfortunately, luck was not in their favor, and they did end up losing. So, and the only team that's guaranteed in, no matter what they do, are the Gengars. So their games are going to be still technically important for everyone else, but they're obviously going to try to win. So, without further ado, let's take a look into the matchups. So first off, we have Sword and Shield with Toto versus Eternal Spirit. If we look at the sheet real quick, we can see that Toto has not been doing very well at all in this tournament. He has done very poorly. He actually hasn't won a single game, 0-5, and is arguably the worst player this entire season period, which is really not a good look, especially if you're one of the best teams in the format. So obviously going into this, Toto is definitely not looking like he's favored, but Eternal Spirit, on the other hand, he has a better record, obviously, because no one has as bad of a record as Toto does, but Eternal Spirit has a 4-2 record, so he's pretty solid, and he actually does play a lot of SS. If I was to make a prediction right now, I would say Goldenrod Gengars with their prep. Even though Toto has done very pitifully during this entire tournament, I do feel like with their building they could possibly take one out, but I think the obvious choice here is to go for Eternal Spirit because he's been playing more solidly and he's been able to get more wins over the course of the tournament. So I will say that he is probably the person that's going to win this. Alright, next up we got Alvarado versus Ziri. Alvarado is obviously a super good player and has been pulling out really good games, and Ziri, on the other hand, has not been doing particularly well despite being a really good Monotype player. Feels like this tournament was just not it for them. So if we look at their record, for example, they're 1-2, which is definitely not very good, and they haven't been getting slotted in very often either, possibly due to activity. But regardless, they're not doing nearly as well as we would think that they would do. And because of that, I'm feeling a little iffy, because I would usually lock in Ziri because he's very good at mono, and he can most likely just beat Alvarado due to experience. But the Gengars have shown that they can take any player and just make them beat like really good players because of their building and their superior coaching. So I definitely do think Alvarado might have a chance to win against Ziri here. I think he might be favored, but Ziri can definitely pull his own. Next up we got Nalik versus the Architect. Nalik had a very shoddy performance last game, so I think the Architect might be a little favored here. Not going to say Nalik is absolutely terrible, but he hasn't been doing super good. Because let's look at Nalik's record, because the Architect also hasn't been doing very well, and he's not a super good player. I think they actually have the same record, yeah. The Architect is actually 1-2. But yeah, Nalik is 1-1. So both of these players are not super good, but if I had to choose one, I think the Architect might actually take it. As much as I do love Nalik as a player, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to pull this one out. But this is the Gengar, so I think I will edge him in this matchup because the Architect does have the worst record, and he is also not as like solid of a player as some of the other players, as you can tell by his record. But I definitely do feel like Nalik plus the Gengar's prep, especially since it's week 7, I feel like the Gengars are definitely going to make sure he has a better record and that he wins this tournament. I mean, he wins this game. So yeah, it's not do or die for the Gengars, so you might not see peak building, but I do feel like they will care enough to make sure that the Honchkrows lose this round. So yeah, I think they like might be able to win with the superior coaching from Chaitanya and Zap. Next up, we got Peachy Cloud versus Gondra in Sun and Moon. Oh, whoops, I missed Zap versus Ema in Sun and Moon. I think I haven't really seen. Okay, so Ema hasn't been doing well. I don't think in this generation. He's only played a few games. He's 1-1 right now. Zap I also haven't seen a lot of, but he's apparently 3-1, so that's pretty good. But I think it's pretty obvious that Zap is going to be favored here because he and Chaitanya are very good SM mains, and I think it just goes without saying that he's just really, really good. And I'm actually surprised that he's not playing at all in this week. So I guess he doesn't really have to though, because his team is in regardless of what he does. So I guess he's just saving his time and just like not playing, and allowing some of his other lesser played players to get a chance at playtime, which is pretty good on him. But yeah, Zap is definitely going to take this because Ema has not been very solid, and a lot of people have said that he's kind of washed in mono right now, so I don't doubt that the Honchkrows can probably help him turn out a good win against Zap, because Zap is definitely going to not have like his guard super up, but he's probably going to play solidly enough to win. So if you want my opinion, I think Zap is definitely going to win this, but Ema could potentially win. It's not going to be a huge wash. Next round we have Sun and Moon, Peachy Clouds versus Gondra. Gondra has been playing amazingly this entire tournament. He is one of the few players that has gone undefeated. As you can see, he is 5-0, which is very ironic considering his opponent was the last MPL previously undefeated player, which would be Peachy Clouds, who goes by Dolly for some reason on tournaments. So Peachy Clouds is actually 3-2 right now. Not as good as he normally would be, but he has been playing solidly, and I feel like the rounds he has lost haven't been due to him being a really bad player. So I do think that Peachy is definitely going to this matchup is going to be very, very interesting, especially since this is the Gengar's first shot at possibly beating Gondra. So yeah, I definitely think that Peachy might have the edge here, but Gondra is coming out really strong, and the Honchkrows have been providing him with really good teams. So I do think that Gondra is definitely favored here, because Peachy hasn't been as consistent, but Gondra, I feel like this is going to be the toughest match Gondra has to win, because Peachy is just such a good player and has amazing prep as well, and this is in one of the Gengar's best generations, I believe. So Gondra is definitely going to be a really hard wall for Peachy to beat, and I do think that Gondra definitely has the advantage here. But Peachy can definitely give him a run for his money, probably the biggest run for his money he's going to have in the tournament. Like I said, this match is going to be a must-watch for sure. Oraz, Confide versus Star. Star hasn't been doing well this tournament at all either. He's pretty negative. Let's just take a look at his record real quick. Alright, Star, last time I checked his record, he was like super negative. Now he's like even. Alright, so he's been doing much better, I guess. But, Star is a pretty decent player. He's always done decently in mono, but he's not like super good. At least I haven't seen him be super good. Maybe he just doesn't have the right team support for Oraz, but I definitely do feel like Oraz is definitely one of those tiers where you have to be like a really good mono main to understand it. So I do think that in that respect, Confide might have the advantage here because his managers are way better at helping him with Gen 6 than I think the Honchkrows are capable of. But Star is the more experienced mono player here, so it will come down to possibly the matchup, not necessarily the player skill. But yeah, if I had to pick between these two, I'd probably go with the Gengar's player, because Star has been relatively inconsistent with the Honchkrows, and I do think that if there's any person he was going to, if there's any team he was going to lose against, it's definitely the whoever the Gengars put in for Auras, because they just have superior building. Next up we have Black and White Avarice versus Sabella. Avarice is really good at BW, and so is Sabella. This is going to be a relatively interesting match. I do think that if I had to choose one, Sabella is obviously the favorite choice to win. This is mainly because I feel like Sabella... let's see... So Sabella is 5-2 right now, and he's only been playing Black and White. He's one of the better Black and White players right now. Avarice, I don't think he's as good. Yeah, Avarice is actually 1-6, which is pretty bad. But I do think that, yeah, this is probably most likely going to be a wash. Like, I like Avarice as a user, but it's very hard for me to say this, but they're going to get washed by Sabella, absolutely. Like, even with the Gengars as team support, there's just no way that there's going to be it's going to be extremely hard for Avarice to win against Sabella, because his building, I think he built for himself on this team, but his building and his experience in this tier is just phenomenal, and he will most likely beat Avarice. This is most likely going to be a fodder match for Sabella just to increase his win rate. But yeah, not much to go in about on this match. It's really just going to be a wash. Next up we got the BO3 Brummirage versus One True Lycan. Let's see. I'm not sure why Brummirage is in BO3, because I'm pretty sure they're most known for their Sword and Shield gameplay, not really any other generation. So I'm not particularly sure why they put him in here. I'm not sure if this is a requested matchup or something, but I know Brummirage can play other gens, but I just don't think they're well known for that, and I don't really think this is like super good. I mean, I understand that they wanted Brummirage to get time to play, because obviously they haven't had a lot, because the Gengars have been like in really finicky positions the entire tournament, so obviously I understand why they didn't play Brummirage all the time, because they're not super consistent and they're new. But versus One True Lycan, who's absurdly experienced in the BO3. Let's see if I can find him. Yeah. So not only is he experienced in BO3, he's also 4-2, which is kind of scary. And Brummirage's thing doesn't really matter, per se. Like, he's 0-1, he hasn't even played like a real match yet. And it looks like they picked him up recently. I guess they must have picked him up. Because, yeah, he hasn't gotten a lot of time to play, as I said before, because he was recently picked up. But, yeah, Brummirage probably isn't going to win against Lycan. I don't think they're gonna win. At least in my opinion, I don't think they're gonna win. Lycan is just way more solid and way more consistent at all the gens than Brummirage is. So this is probably also going to be a wash, but Brummirage can possibly do something in one of the gens if he challenges Lycan to SS, because I feel like they're gonna probably win there. So it's most likely going to come down to a Game 3 scenario for this matchup. Mainly because Lycan can't really play SS as well as the other gens, but we'll see. Next matchup we have is the Howley Houndoons versus the Tricos. So, first matchup we have for these guys is Fikir Puddin versus Floss, and I do think that Floss has been relatively inconsistent the entire tour. So if we look at his record, despite him being the most expensive player in the tournament, he actually doesn't have a super good record. He's 4-2, which is decent, but he's not like amazing, and he does have some pretty whack builds, so there is that going on for him. But Fikir Puddin, his opponent, isn't like super good either. I mean, he's decent, but he's not like a super good. Alright, let's take a look. So he's actually got a tied record right now, which isn't super good, but he's like one win off of from Floss. So they're relatively even, I guess, if you think about it like that. But Fikir is obviously, like, I don't know, these two players are, like, relatively even, because this is a Nexus showdown, obviously, but, these two are, like, relatively, I'd say, even in experience, I guess. At least in my opinion, I think they're both even in experience and like, playing-wise in Sword and Shield. So this matchup might be decent, but I think if we had to pick, like, who's the more solid and consistent player, I think it would be Floss. Because both of these guys are, like, winners of, like, Monotype tournaments, right? Because I think Floss won Seasonals and Fikir Puddin won Monotype Generations. I might have that flip-flopped, but basically that's the deal between these two, and they're pretty decent players, so even though Floss went for more, I think it's mainly because of his building, and Fikir can definitely get some decent builds from the Houndooms, so we'll see what happens this match. Hopefully Floss doesn't bring a random berry, and all Fikir has to do is just bring Incinerate, and suddenly Floss's entire strategy will fall apart. But next up we have Sword and Shield between Zugaboo Royale and Adjustments. Zugu, not sure why he's playing Sword and Shield. I could have sworn he hated this generation, but here we are. I think since this is a do or die week, I think Adjustments will be getting some really good builds from his teammates. It might be something, it's probably going to be something like Fire or something. But I think if we had to choose, Zugu definitely has more experience in Mono, but I think Adjustments, I don't know, he might do decently. He might do decently against Zugu if he plays properly, but I do think Zugu is favored to win here, because I don't think Adjustments is going to be able to play solidly enough to beat someone as consistent, well, not as consistent, but as, like, I don't know how to put it, like, he's just decent enough just to not lose to an okay-ish player. I don't know how to put that into better terms, but, like, yeah, Zugu's just not one of those people who just get bodied, or at least beaten easily by, like, an okay-ish player. So yeah, Adjustments is most likely going to lose, but he can pull out a win if he tries really, really hard and plays out of his mind. I want him to win too, so good luck in that regard. Sword and Shield Maroon versus Metariozu 7. I think this is kind of rough, because both of these players are okay-ish. Metariozu 7 has had it really rough in this entire generation. Not this entire generation, the entire tournament he's had it relatively rough. And he hasn't, like, won a ton, because he's gotten super bad matchups, but he has played it pretty consistently. Maroon is tied, and Metariozu's record is also going to be pretty bad. Oh wait, I just skipped over his record, hold on. Yeah, he's also 3-3. Both of these players are 3-3. So, you would think it's an even matchup, but if I had to choose, I think it's probably going to go to Metariozu 7. He's definitely I wouldn't say a way better player, but he's definitely a way more consistent player. If he doesn't get a bad matchup here, and doesn't get, like, super screwed over by, like, and doesn't, like, choke for no reason like he did in the last game. Well, he didn't choke, but he just made a really weird play at the end game of his last game in Week 6. So, if he doesn't do anything like that, I think he should win against Maroon. But otherwise, if any of those weird things do happen, Maroon probably will win. Or he can just hacks him, which is something apparently the Houndooms are very fond of doing. So, yeah. Next up we have Sun and Moon Harp versus Lucky Piper. Harp does not build super well in Sun and Moon, so as long as Lucky Piper doesn't bring some random trash, he should win. But that being said, that is Lucky Piper, so I'm not super sure if he's going to bring something that's, like, I don't know how to put it without making it sound like he's bad, but, like, something that's not terrible. If he just doesn't bring something terrible, or something that's super whack, or, like, super quote-unquote fire, he should beat Harp, but otherwise I think Harp is going to beat him if he brings something super whack that just doesn't hit. Because I feel like that's what a lot of Piper's building has been, really hit or miss teams with some random quote-unquote fire, so if he doesn't bring any of the super whack stuff, he should beat Harp really easily, but because I know he builds really weird, I'm not sure if he's gonna win, so this one's up in the air for me personally, but I think I'm gonna go with Harp because he's a little more consistent. Even though his builds aren't super good, he's a little bit more consistent of a player and a builder. And Lucky Piper is just all over the place in my opinion, so yeah. Sun and Moon, Days for Dabs versus Prosaic. I'm not sure if this game is gonna happen because I've heard that Days for Dabs has gone like offline for a lot of things, so I'm not sure if this game is gonna happen. Yeah, there might be a substitute or something, but yeah, Prosaic, if I had to predict like this game will happen, I think Prosaic is definitely favored. Days for Dabs knows how to beat Prosaic though, because he studies a lot of his games and he does watch and play very, very often, and he's encountered him a lot on the ladder, and he knows exactly how Prosaic's playstyle works. I mean, obviously Prosaic is the better player here. We're not going to look back at the records or anything to show you that. Prosaic's actually had it rough this tournament, I believe, but we know Prosaic is definitely the more favored player here. But I think Dabs has studied Prosaic enough to actually probably beat him if the matchup isn't a factor. So yeah, I think I'll go edge Dabs here if he does end up playing this game, but Prosaic is probably going to have probably a rough time beating Dabs because Dabs knows how to play against Prosaic, to put it in simple terms. Next up we have Oraz, which is Splash versus Tide. I think Splash will lose here because Tide, if he doesn't get like a super whack build from Lucky Piper, he's probably gonna do something really good. Yeah, I think since this is do or die week for the Tricos, I think Tide probably will win here, because even though it's the same thing for the Houndooms, I do think that Piper will definitely make Tide bring something like super good. And when Piper's building does hit, it hits really well, and I think Splash might not be able to handle that. So knowing that, I think Splash is probably gonna lose. But if we do look at the records, Tide has a 2-2 record, while Splash has a 2-3 record. So while Tide is slightly more favored, I do definitely think that Splash went for a lot for a good reason. But I think he slowly figured out that his niche wasn't in SS, so he's been doing Oraz to play a little bit better. And I think it's been working out for him so far, so he's probably going to come into this pretty hot, but I don't know, we'll see. Also, yeah, he hasn't been performing super well ever since his World Cup loss, so yeah, it's going to be hard. His mental should be better, so I think he can like try hard enough to beat Tide, but I feel like Tide's definitely going to win this, at least in my opinion. Next up we got Black and White, North versus Crashy. I would usually lock in North, but Crashy's pretty solid, so yeah, I'll still lock in North automatically because North is just super solid. Let's look at records real quick. North obviously has a 4-2 record. He's very good at a BW. And so is Crashy, which doesn't surprise me because I know both of these players are very good, but I do feel like North just has the advantage here, in my opinion. I think next up we got yeah, no, this is going to be like the most even matchup of the game, in my opinion. At least of the ones I've seen so far, because these are the first time I'm looking at the matchups, so yeah, I think North probably is going to win. But that's just my bias showing, because I think North is like the best BW player, period. But Crashy can probably upset him, but I'm going to lock in North personally. Crashy definitely has what he needs to win, but North is just super solid in my opinion. Next up we got Trichotomy versus Wanka. in the BO3 slot. Trichotomy should probably win because Wenka has not been playing solidly at all recently, because he's been making some super whack teams, playing super weird, and just not at all playing solidly or consistently. So I think Trichotomy should be able to thrash him in this game, in this series. So I don't think there's any preferred gens either, I think, besides Gen 8, but I don't think Wenka has played Gen 8 that often, despite being tier leader for a rough stint. So yeah, I think Trike is definitely favored to win here, in my opinion. Not even going to go into records or anything, because I just feel like Wenka has fallen off recently as a player, so I don't think he's going to pick it back up either. So I think Trike is just going to run over him, personally. Next up, we got the Dreamyard Darkrai versus the Miniors. Alright, this matchup, Kaguya LYS, otherwise known as Ayayayayayaya, versus Conflux, is going to be a really interesting Sword and Shield match. Because I think I'll just call him Kaguya for now. Kaguya has been pretty decent. He is 2-2, which is fine, but he's a pretty decent player and can definitely do a lot of work. And Conflux definitely has been putting the work that was expected of him as a 20k first time player. He's 3-3 right now. Both of them have tied records, but I do think that the better SS player is probably going to be Conflux. So but due to the nature of Sword and Shield, I feel like both of these players are this is going to come down to matchup most likely, which is really bad to say because I want this to be based on the players, but Sword and Shield is just one of those metas where it's just like, it's just not that's just not the case. So I definitely do feel like Conflux probably is going to have the advantage here due to his building superiority, but yeah. Honestly, I would say like all the Miniors are probably going to win versus the Darkrai's, because I'm pretty sure most of the Darkrai's are just have like given up at this point. Because like, first of all, the Darkrai's can't win even if they tried. So most of them are probably like feeling defeated and probably won't try in their games. It might just bring some random trash. So there's a chance that that's gonna happen. But assuming that they all try to take this seriously and try to beat the Miniors just to try and improve all their records. I definitely feel like their morale has taken a huge hit, and their builds and their plays probably just won't be as good as they should be. So yeah, very unfortunate. But Feliburn versus Alcyone for Sword and Shield. Feliburn has been putting in wins, but I feel like Alcyone is kind of on fire recently, so I think Alcyone might ride the wave into victory, honestly. Because even if we look at the records, let's look at Feliburn real quick. Feliburn hasn't played a ton of games, but yeah, he's 2-1 right now. And who's the other player? Alcyone. Alcyone, the French fire main. He is 3-2, so they're basically the same win rate wise. But Alcyone obviously is still on fire from their last game because they played super well and brought a really good type. I think Alcyone might win here, in my opinion, because I think they've played a little bit more, and attribute building is gonna really take him over. Well, actually, attribute doesn't build SS. We already know that from our interview, but yeah, I think he just might. Something in my gut just says that he's going to win, most likely. So yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Sorry, Feliburn. Sword and Shield, Kev versus Maki's Fox. Maki's Fox has been on fire. Miniors haven't lost a single. I think they literally 8-0'd and then 7-1 in 2 weeks, ever since Maki's Fox got on the team. And Maki's Fox hasn't dropped a game. He brought Flying, for God's sake, and won. So Yeah, dude, what do I even say? Like, Maki's Fox is probably gonna destroy Kev. Like, I respect Kev, but he's going to lose. Probably, most likely. He's like on fire, and he's been making his team on fire. So, if someone has that much influence on their team, you have no chance. It doesn't matter if you're Chaitanya, you're probably gonna lose. So, yeah, Maki's Fox probably gonna win. Not even gonna, like, deny it. She's just gonna win. Sun and Moon, Evigaro versus Attribute. Evigaro has been extremely tilted for the last couple of matches that they've had in MPL, which is understandable because Monotype is pretty tilting, but I think versus someone like Attribute, she's going to lose, because I feel like Attribute is a way more solid player than Evigaro is. And unless he gets like a super bad matchup, Attribute will most likely beat Evigaro. Because, let's see, let's look at their records real quick. So Evigaro has a 3-3 record, which is pretty okay, pretty respectable. And Attribute's notably, like, not super good in team tours. So, yeah, he's 2-3 right now. But I feel like there's a good chance that he's probably going to beat Evigaro because of the other factors that I mentioned before. And this is a must-win week for him, so he's definitely going to bring something super good to beat Evigaro with. So, gonna lock him in for this. Alpha Rabbit versus Bidana. Bidana has had a relatively rough season as well. And Alpha Rabbit has been... I haven't seen a ton of their games, actually. So, let me go take a look at their record real quick. They are 0-2, so that's immediately going to tell me that this is going to be a wash for Bitana. But Bitana actually also hasn't been doing super well. So, I'm curious. Yeah, Bidana is tied right now. So, obviously, the obvious lock is Bidana, but Alpha Rabbit must have been drafted for a reason, so there's probably a chance that the Dark Rise are going to allow him to win, but I think this is definitely favored in Bidana's favor. As long as he doesn't get hacks or get a bad matchup, because I think those were his main losses. Next up we got Arafine versus Ridley. I think Ridley's probably going to win this, just because he's a more solid player. And I think it will come down to nothing else. Yeah, I think that's what I'll say. Black and White, Trace versus Keitana. Keitana's the GOAT in Black and White, so I don't really think Trace stands a chance. So yeah, keep going, Keitana. You're gonna win, because there's literally no way you can lose. I'm pretty sure he literally has the best BW record, if I'm not wrong. Keitana. Yeah, he's literally 4-1, has only played BW. I'm pretty sure he has one of the best BW records of, like, the entire tournament. So, yeah, Keitano, literally fire, can't possibly lose. Can't possibly lose against, who is this? Who even is this? Who is this player? I know who this player is, but, like, they're not gonna take this guy down. 0-2 Trace in Black and White? You think this guy stands a chance against the GOAT? Like, it's literally just gonna be a wash. This man is going to get destroyed by Keitano, and there's nothing he can do about it. Sorry, but you're not gonna win. Next up we got BO3 Tsukushiku versus LaRue. Tsukushiku is a pretty good player, has been very fire, and I've heard very good things about him. But I feel like LaRue is also kind of an interesting player. So I think this will mostly come down to who can play the last gen the most. This is one of those BO3 situations, because they both have their generations where they're really good in, and then those matches where they're not super good in. So Tsuku's like 3-2. Tsuku's 3-2, and LaRue. How is LaRue? I feel like I've seen LaRue lose a lot. Let's see. Alright, LaRue is 4-2 in BO3, so yeah. They're obviously favored, but... And I do think that LaRue is definitely... If I had to say this before MPL, I would say LaRue would definitely destroy Tsukushiku, but Tsukushiku has been proving to me that he's actually pretty good, so... don't know. This can go either way, but I think I'm still going to favor LaRue just because I think he's the better player. But that's not to say that Tsukushigu sucks or that he's going to get washed. By no means is that going to happen, but because I think this is definitely going to be a Game 3 situation. But I think LaRue is more favored in my opinion because his building and his ability to just like look at his opponents and just be able to play against them is just really good. So I think I'm gonna say LaRue's gonna win this. Alright, last team of them all. We have the Blackthorn Bucks versus the Mirage Island Milotics. So this matchup is actually the most important out of them all because this determines if they tie or if they win. It determines whether or not a lot of teams make it in or don't make it in. So without further ado, let's take a look at this matchup spread. So we got Kither versus Parasong. As long as Parasong doesn't bring poison and waits until literally the last wee hours of nighttime to play the game, I feel like this will probably go in his favor. And again, Kither is also a really solid player as well. Let's see real quick. So Kither is obviously 3-2, and Parrish is obviously doesn't have this good of a record. Yeah, he's 1-2 in SS right now, so yeah. I think Kither is definitely favored. He's definitely the more solid SS player, but Parrish can probably just pull some of that Mirage Island Milotics magic, as I like to call it, and just win against Kither. So there's a possibility that can happen. Next up we got Gorex versus Havens. Havens shouldn't have won nearly as many games as he has. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Gorex should win this. Keyword being should. SS, it's Chaco versus Yedla. I haven't seen Yedla play a lot actually, but Chaco, I can't remember if it was him or not, but I think he was the player that got absolutely like lambasted by yeah, it was him versus Star, and he like made like a huge, he had like a Grimmsnarl in front of a almost dead Aegislash, and he like lost like 100% of his health to like Aegislash outplays, and it was like really weird to watch, because I would have said like immediately that Chaco would have won, but like after seeing that I'm like a lot more unsure. So I think Yedla versus Chaco is going to be matchup defendant most likely, but if I have to choose, hopefully Chaco doesn't do that weird stuff that he did before, but otherwise, if he does that weird stuff, Yedla is going to win. Next up we got Catalytic versus Mateus. Catalytic, I'm not sure if Catalytic is like a super good Sun and Moon player. I feel like that's Mateus, but Mateus is obviously 0-3 and hasn't been very good in this entire tournament at all. I do think he should win more. I feel like this should be his first win, but I feel like if his track record is anything to say about it, I think Catalytic is going to win this, unfortunately. Sorry, Matt. Sun and Moon, Azalea versus Empo. Great. I'm gonna have to look at the records for this one, because it's a very tough call. I feel like they're both even in terms of experience, so Azalea is 1-1 and Empo's 4-2, so I think Empo probably is going to win, just because I think he's been playing more and he's been playing more consistently. So he's probably going to win most likely, especially if he still has that Fire Descend building behind his back. So yeah, Azalea most likely going to lose. Wasn't Azalea in BO3 last time? Why does he get switched around gens so often? Yeah, whatever. Empo probably gonna beat Azalea. Or as. Teemo versus Cell. I swear this is the first game I've seen Teemo play. Let's see. Yeah, this is literally his first game. What the heck? So we're good. Why are you putting him against Cell? Isn't Cell one of the best BW players? Okay, he's one of the best ORAS players, excuse me, but what are you doing? Why are you sending this guy who literally hasn't even played a game yet in front of one of the best ORAS players of like the entire generation? What are you doing? What is this? What is this? What? This literally looks like they're trying to kill someone. This looks like murder right here. Anyway, yeah, Cell's gonna win, because Teemo hasn't even played the entire tournament. And even if he has been watching and like practicing, and like doing test games, there is no way he's gonna beat Cell. Because Cell has just been on fire the entire tournament, and like, you can't just beat one of the best players in a tournament. Just like that, and just have played no games. There's a very, very low chance that Cell loses this game, in my opinion. But yeah, next up we got Black and White, Jif versus Free Roamer. This is going to be a really highlight match, because I think these are the two better players of being Black and White. So obviously, Jif. Not sure if I'm saying that, by the way, saying that right. Jif is obviously tied. Free Roamer. I think Free Roamer got robbed. Oh yeah, he got hella robbed last game, so he should be 4-2 right now. So yeah, I think Free Roamer probably is going to take the cake here, in my opinion. I feel like he's more the goated player, but Jif is obviously very solid in BW as well. And while he may not have as good of a record, or should have as good of a record as Free Roamer, I definitely feel like Jif is a little inferior to Free Roamer, in my opinion. I could be wrong though, he could win, so let's see how that goes. And last match of the entire tournament, BO3 Say versus Desem. Desem won his last game against Lucky Piper with relative ease, apparently, so I haven't really seen a lot of his BO3 potential. I've seen him play other gens pretty well, but BO3, I don't know. Especially against Say, who's like extremely experienced in BO3 too. Like, I'm not sure if he's gonna win. I don't doubt Desem at all. Okay, so Say is negative in BO3 right now. And Desem is also like the same record, but like, I don't know, this seems like a pretty odd matchup. I think Say should win here though. I think he just got like fragged by some of the best BO3, because most of the BO3 players are like really, really good, because you got people like Trichotomy, Run True Lycan, LaRue, Zukushiku. I think Chaitanya was mainly playing BO3 for the Gengars too, so like, Say was in a rough spot regardless. But I think this is going to be one of his games where he just farms against Desem, because I don't think Desem is as good in BO3 as Say is, so Say should most likely win this match, in my opinion. And that does it for the predictions. So if I had to choose the teams that would most likely win, it's funny, because I think I literally just predicted that the Bucks and the Milotics to tie, if I remember properly. Yeah, I think I said Parrish would win. I think I said Parrish and Gorex would win. Chaco, Kata would win. Teemo's gonna lose. Jif. Okay, never mind. I said that the Milotics were gonna win. My bad. But yeah, this should be a really interesting tournament. These matchups are mostly pretty solid. I don't think there's like a ton of washes. There's definitely a lot of potential for really exciting games for the entire tournament. So I'm gonna make sure I listen to all my matches pings from the Monotype room in Discord, because this is gonna be probably one of the most interesting and influential weeks of the entire tournament. And usually week 7 is like that, but this one's even more particularly so because the tournament's so close. But yeah, can't wait to see what Bromirage does in BO3, and I can't wait to see Metariolu 7 beats Maroon. I can't wait to see Zukushiku versus LaRue. That's going to be a really exciting match. Can't wait to see Jif versus Free Roamer, Say versus Desem. So many exciting games, so many. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of content. I think this might be this won't be the last one. I think I'll do semifinals and finals as well, but hopefully with people, because unfortunately I was not able to get anyone for this video. But hopefully you guys were able to enjoy this. My name has been Namernan, and I'm now signing off.